learning about experiences that someone else has in the past really can help you deal with what you're experiencing in the future, and in the moment. Martha Hughes Cannon was the first woman. She wasn't the only woman in the legislature when she was there. There were a couple of other women that were elected in the House at the time, but she was the only one in the Senate. It was fascinating for me to learn about her story and learn about how she got her male colleagues to come along and to see things her way, see things a different way. Her lived experience proved to be very valuable in the legislation that she passed, and she passed some monumental legislation that benefits us still to this day. A few years ago, and it was shortly before we did the vote on the statue in 2018, I had been to Washington, D.C. on a trip, and I had been to the Library of Congress, the building there. It was the first time I'd ever been into the Library of Congress, and it's this beautiful building. And there's the reading room in there is this gorgeous room with statues everywhere. And there were statues of men like Plato and Moses and all of these incredible people. And then there were statues of women also. But all the statues of women were allegorical women. They weren't real women. They were statues that meant something like history or law or justice. And it really struck a nerve when I saw all of those women statues. And I started looking around that building and then around Washington, D.C. to find signs of real women, not just allegorical women. And they were hard to come by. It was really hard to find them. And that bothered me because we have real women in the past who have done incredible things and get no recognition or credit for it. And I knew that needed to change. So having Martha Hughes Cannon be one of Utah's 2 representative statues in the U.S. Capitol building is a big deal. There aren't very many women statues in the Capitol building. And I love the fact that Utah has led in the past. We were one of the first few states to put women's suffrage in our state constitution, put an equal rights amendment in our state constitution. We were the first place where women voted under an equal suffrage law. And having the first woman elected to a Utah Senate be in the entire country, and years before the 19th Amendment granted the right to vote for most American women, it's a really big deal. Also, I was in the Senate, and it meant a lot to me personally to champion this trailblazer who did so much good for the state of Utah and broke so many barriers for the rest of us.
So I served in the Utah House of Representatives for 10 years, and while I was serving, all of the women legislators knew who Martha Hughes Cannon was. There's a statue of her out behind the Capitol. We all knew who she was, and in fact, we had already formed something called the Martha Hughes Cannon Caucus, which is a group of women who were currently serving and anyone who had previously served in the state legislature. And so we were very well aware of her. And when the idea started to sort of rumble around about, wouldn't it be amazing if in honor of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, if we could pass a law to place Martha Hughes Cannon's statue in Statuary Hall in Washington, D.C., that would be amazing. And that started to kind of rumble around, and I knew right then I needed to be involved in this. One of the highlights of my service was giving tours to young people, especially of the Capitol, and telling them about the features of the Capitol building and what went on here and the legislative process. And one day I had the privilege of giving a tour of the Capitol to Troop 914, who lived in my district. And they were interested and bright and had good questions. And then at the end, the question came up, is there anything you're working on or anything this session that might be interesting that the girls could kind of get involved with? Well, it just so happened there was. There was this bill to move Martha Hughes Cannon's statue to Statuary Hall in DC. So I mentioned that to them, and their eyes just opened up, and they were ecstatic about the opportunity to work on that. And it was perfect because here were young girls who would soon be young women, who would soon be women in our community, who would continue this legacy that they were already developing as engaged, interested, involved people. And for them to have an opportunity to sort of like watch this bill shepherd through the process, I thought would be really interesting. They didn't just watch the bill shepherd through, they got involved.
We met with my representative, Becky Edwards, and we went on a tour, and Becky told us about this bill that was supposed to send Martha to Washington, D.C., and I was immediately interested in it because I just wanted to be a part of making, having people learn about Martha. And so I did some research with my troop, and then we wrote letters and drew pictures and told other people about Martha and everything that she did. And then we gave the letters to Mike Noel, who was holding the bill in committee, and then the next day he moved it out of committee, and I was there for the vote, and I was ecstatic when it passed.
Once a bill passes, you forget that there is a lot of anxiety and nervousness leading up to that final vote. So let me bring you to the day the vote passes. A lot of people had been so impressed with what they called our secret weapon on the bill, which is basically this amazing group of young girls who were fourth graders at the time. These were 9 and 10-year-olds who came up to the Capitol and did all the amazing things Maya was talking about. So we're day of the vote, which happens to be on February 14th. It's the day that in 1870, the first woman anywhere in the modern nation voted in an election. It was Seraph Young, February 14th, 1870. So specifically, we wanted it to be on that day because it was kind of symbolic. I present the bill and the votes start coming in, and it takes a minute for all the people to vote, and you can see all the names are on the board, and if they vote yes, they turn green. If they vote no, they turn red. And you're watching it all happen, and Troop 914 is up in the gallery holding hands and just watching this on a screen there. And finally, when the votes all come in and we can see the bill passed, we were, as Maya said, ecstatic, and as fourth grade girls are prone to do, they were screaming. They were yelling, we did it, and screaming with joy, and we were all just incredibly proud of that moment. That's very rare at the Capitol for an outburst, a noisy outburst, even though it was very well deserved in the gallery. So the speaker sort of looks up at this group of young girls up there, knowing that these were our secret weapon girls, and he sort of half-heartedly with the gavel is banging it down. We will have order in the gallery, but I loved the phrase that they were cheering that day. We did it. And I think that was so true, first of all, and so symbolic of this collaborative effort of young people, old people, really creating a pathway to acknowledge the potential and the accomplishments of women in our state. It was incredibly special.
We need the young people today, especially young girls today, to see their potential. And they can see their potential often through other people's experiences, through other eyes. That group of girls that day, it was so powerful to me. There were girls there who had written letters to their legislators who weren't supportive of the bill. And to have those letters hand-delivered to a legislator to say, look, these girls are counting on you because this matters to them. And read these letters. Understand why this matters to these girls, to be able to see another woman in a high place, and not just see her in a high place, but see her get the honor and the recognition and the praise that she deserves, have a place in history, especially in a town where a lot of the women who are there are allegorical women, not real women. It was a really powerful moment, and that picture of them holding hands and, yelling for joy and just their expression, it says so much. It embodied my own joy and my own experience there, but to see them do that, yeah, it makes everything worth it when we think of the young people who benefit from the things that we do today.
It's important to me because I think that I've been able to see all the things that I can do with my life, and I don't have to be stuck doing one thing, and I can make a difference.
Well, I think one of the greatest things about Martha's legacy was she wasn't all about her. She fought to get Utah women the right to vote, and she fought then to get American women the right to vote. She fought for others, and I think that's the most important lesson to learn. I've tried to think about that in my roles, in my public roles, that this isn't about me, this is about all women. This is about everyone, and especially about the women who are coming behind me. That's the important lesson that we learn from Martha.